Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Everyone here, everyone watching at home. I don't know why you'd be watching at home, but good evening anyways. Presentation today is probably not something you'd expect from someone like me, but it's about the importance of varying your play style. Eve is kind of more than just a game for a lot of us, especially for a lot of the crowd that are actually in attendance in Vegas. I know you guys are some of the more hardcore ones, and it's very difficult. It's very easy to get like really focused and just stuck in a little bit of a rut. And it's fine most of the time. You have a lot of fun when you're in that rut, but it can cause a burnout. And I'm sure everyone has a few friends that have quit Eve 4 or 5 or 6 times, but they always come back a few months later. But that kind of leaving and coming back, it can cause some problems. On an individual scale, it's not so bad, but on a structural scale and like an alliance scale, it could be a bad thing. So I kind of want to talk just a little bit about trying to just avoid this burnout, and turns out it's pretty easy to do. I've been playing Eve, I don't know, like 12 years or so, and for the last 10, I don't think there's been a single day where I haven't thought about Eve, which is kind of embarrassing when I say it out loud, but but a lot of what I do, I kind of lucked into it, right? I just started doing random stuff, and then I'd get bored, and then I'd try other random stuff. But let's do this. All right, so this is actually a graphic that's used for a PhD program, just to explain what a PhD program's like. And I think Eve is basically the PhD program of games, right? So it kind of works. So you start up on the top over there, top left. The big circle is the amount of stuff that's in the game, and the blue circle is your knowledge, right? You do the tutorials, you kind of bump around, maybe you forget to do the tutorials, whatever happens, you meet some people, and you kind of start going in a certain direction. A lot of the times, people don't know why they're going in a certain direction. They just start going in a direction because they think that's what you're supposed to do. So they start going in that direction, and they get a little bit broader knowledge. But Eve is a game about specialization. Like the entire mechanics of the game are focused entirely on specialization. It's how the skill point systems work. That's why like a 6-month-old character can compete with a 5-year-old character and oftentimes be better. So you go into this specialization, you keep going, and I just realized that kind of looks a bit phallic. As I'm staring at it, but that's great. So as you keep going, you sort of reach the edge, right? You reach the edge, you get so caught up in everything, you get so laser focused, and then you just try and start to push the edge and break the barriers. And that's what EVE Online players do the best, right? We love breaking the game. I'm sure it makes CCB's job really, really fun when we try and break the game. But this is generally what we do. And it's good for a year, 2 years of playing, but if you just keep on doing this, eventually what's gonna happen is your playstyle is going to get changed in a certain way, because we break it, right? So they have to change it and fix it. And then you just get stuck. You don't want to go back to the start. You don't want to kind of do anything else. You just kind of burn out and play something else for a little while, which not too bad. So you get, I guess saltiness is a pretty good way to put it there. But on a group level, when that happens, your entire alliance or your corp or even your little core of groups can completely collapse, right? A lot of these alliances, I'm sure you guys, a lot of your corps, you know that most of the work is done by a select few of people, right? You got maybe a handful of people that will do all the work and provide all the content for maybe 20, 30, 40, 100 people. So if everyone starts being really, really focused and really, really specialized, and they eventually burn out for whatever reason, your entire alliance can just completely collapse, right? But I guess, specialization trap, that's a good way to put it. Whoever wrote this is a genius. But I'm gonna laugh at my own jokes too, thanks. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, the mechanics of Eve really do push you to specialize, right? And that kind of seems what you're supposed to do, and it's the big drawing point to the game. But there is one thing that people often overlook somehow, even though I don't know how anyone would overlook it, but you kind of get I guess you get stuck in a rut of thinking of specialization. You've got so much versatility in the game. There are so many different things you can do. not only in the game, but out of the game too. I mean, you've got hundreds of ships, a whole bunch of different activities. You can do, like if you're into PvP, you can do other stuff. That was really well said, me. But there are just so many things you can do. You can do wormholes, you can do low sec, you can do high sec, you can do incursions, you can do factional warfare. There's just a lot of times we forget how big the game actually is. And you guys definitely need to start messing around and doing other stuff. But there is a reason a lot of people don't want to do this, right? When you specialize, you feel like you're kind of a badass, right? You want to get, EVE's always about getting to the top of the ladder. Like you just want to get better and better and better. And the reason a lot of people don't want to try something new is because you kind of end up like Billy Madison. And I think a lot of you are probably too young to know this. Okay, I'll talk about Billy Madison real quick. So it's a movie, Adam Sandler movie, he used to be good, where he has to go back to school. So when you're an EVE player, when you hit that peak and you want to try something new, this is kind of what you feel like. You're surrounded by a bunch of fresh faces and you're like, I'm too good for this. This isn't what I really want to do. But, I mean, he has a good time in the movie, so you should too. It's a pretty good reason. And a lot of times, there are many other reasons that you don't want to start. Sometimes it's just not profitable, right? If you put all of your skill points into specializing for, let's say, gas cloud mining, and you're like, oh, well, I'll try incursions. It takes a while to start turning up, and you're losing a lot of potential lists that you could have been doing while you were doing your gas cloud mining or whatever. And starting over is never really fun. And it can be really intimidating to try something new, just because that feeling of failure in EVE is one of the spookier things you can have. It's because you're completely aware of it, right? You really hate, a lot of people in EVE really hate that feeling that they're going to fail. But there's nothing wrong with failing. Every single person has failed when they're doing stuff in EVE. I can attest to that. Even in PL, lots of failure happens on a very regular basis. It's very interesting. But on an alliance level, what we like to do is we like to make sure things do get very varied. Because otherwise, as I said before, like your entire thing can die. So Pandemic Legion, we're always recruiting new people, new minds, fresh faces and stuff like that. A lot of the reason is because we always have to change. When Phoebe happens, we were kind of known for just dropping supers and slow cats everywhere. If that was our only one-trick pony, that probably would have killed us. And it did kill a few alliances. I'm sorry, Black Legion guys, but I'm glad you're with me now. So it's a weird thing to think about. So we took in a bunch of wormholers. Hard Knocks guys, you guys probably caught crabs from them last night. They're over there, they're beautiful. And so when we had those kind of fresh faces around, we started getting into wormholes as an organization, not even like a personal level, as an organization. And that led to kind of breaking the game in a new, fun way. We decided we can project across space the same way we used to. We just go through these wormholes. And if we had never really done wormhole stuff, we would have never really figured this out. And who knows when someone else would have done it. And they would have given it way worse of a name. So, yeah. It's not only like the individual level is what I'm trying to project to you guys. It really can affect your alliance. So a lot of these groups, they specialize, they live in one little area of space, and they never really look outside of their little bubble. And you guys really have to do it. Like my Steam friends list is just littered with people who would do this one thing they loved in EVE. They flew one ship, they flew one specific way, and it was everything to them. Then something happens, something gets changed, new stuff gets introduced, nothing happens anymore the way they used to like it, and they just quit because they just don't know what to do anymore. And when you spend 5 years playing a game, and then the one thing you do a lot gets completely changed, you kind of feel like you don't belong anymore, right? And that's really sad. So there's lots of things you can do, right? There are so many things you can do. You can always, both in-game and out of the game, which is one of the cooler things about EVE. If you do PvE, which I know a lot of people start out with, very few people stay with, you just try PvP. It's a pretty easy thing to do. It's Faction warfare low-sec is a nice place to learn. You just buy a bunch of frigates, you go out there, you die a couple dozen times, maybe a couple hundred times if you're really, really skilled. And eventually you kind of get into new areas. Like, you just pull on that thread and it'll take you somewhere you would never really expect to go. Maybe you find a new group. Maybe your incursion buddies say, oh, I now have a faction warfare group to play with. You put an alt in there, you join them, and you can never know where it could take you. Wormhole space, those guys are kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. But they're cool too once you get to know them in their own special ways. And like I said, it could be really rewarding, not only in terms of ISK, but the knowledge that you get from it. I know I was talking to, or Lysis was talking earlier today, or yesterday, I guess, and he was mentioning that when the Purity of the Throne event came out, a lot of things where the sites weren't spawning, right? So you just go into wormholes and kind of run around in there, and they work perfectly fine in there. And if you're just like a diehard PvPer, you can just try and corner the market on something. It's deceptively easy to do. Like, you think of market PvP as running against the guys who just like somehow change it by 1 cent every single time, and it's incredibly frustrating. Or you feel like you have to be like a huge billionaire tycoon to do anything. No, you can just buy a bunch of like scripts or something, and you can just corner the market on that. You can import that to a low-sec hub or something, or put it into a Fortizar and Tama or something, and you can become like a great entrepreneur. Sort of. You'd probably be hated by a lot of people, but it's all good. Another thing that you guys really should do if you haven't done PvP and you're afraid to do like solo PvP because it could be intimidating, even though I told you not to be intimidated, you're still going to be intimidated. But you can go on a lot of public fleets. Spectre Fleet, I know Jane is around somewhere, you can see him walking around. He runs Spectre Fleet, and it's basically just like a pickup fleet, right? You go in their channel, you say, hey, what's going on? They have like a list of what's going to happen, and you just go on a fleet. You don't have to have any knowledge. You don't have to do anything at all. Just keep going, and you'll meet some people who have no idea what's going on, and you'll become friends, and you'll shoot stuff, and you'll explode, and it'll be great. Best of Us does a thing as well. They'll be doing a thing, I think, in a week or so. So there's a lot of these organizations, and there's tons that I don't even know about. And one of the cooler things about EVE, though, is getting involved in the community. You guys, I don't really need to tell you guys about this because you're all here and meeting a whole bunch of crazy people, which is kind of amazing. But you can do so much to vary your playstyle just by the way you interact with the community. You don't even have to change the way you play. You can start a podcast. Literally, they let anyone have a podcast. I have a podcast. Jeff Rader has a podcast. You don't need a license or anything. You just talk, and some people listen to you. Some people will tell you everything you say wrong. Some people will say some very great things to you, though. And yeah, you can. It's basically completely limitless what you can do. And I'm probably not imparting this as well as I should be, but it is the most important thing that you can do in EVE. And I'll tell you a little bit about how it's affected me and how like I've kind of lucked into this position, right? So when I first started playing EVE, I decided I wanted to be a pirate. I was like, yeah, pirates are cool. I took a caracol, I went to low-sec, I got blown up instantly, and it was kind of awful. Then I took another one and I died, I blew up instantly. And eventually one of the people that killed me was telling me how bad I was, but he was offering me advice as well. That's one of the cooler things about pirates and just PvP. When someone murders you, they tell you why you failed, which was nice. So I ended up joining that group, right? And they ended up being like a newbie corp that just shoved all the newbies and griffins and falcons, which was really, really annoying for everyone. And they just showed me the way. So I hung out with them. It took me from low-sec. We went over to Fountain. I got kind of rich a little bit, got my first taste of ISK, and then that group kind of went away. But while I was out there, one of the people that killed me was Pandemic Legion. So they kind of took all the space I had, and I kind of started working with them. And when I joined PL, the first time I tried to join PL, they told me I was definitely not good enough. And so I said, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna fly around in low-sec for a few months. And I flew around in a Drake, and I flew around in low-sec, and I kind of had fun with that. Then eventually I tried to join PL again. They said, fine, we lowered our standards. You can come in. So I joined PL, which was one of the best decisions of my Eve career. And it just happened kind of randomly, just because I was just doing random stuff. Bumbling around like a fool, which one of the best things you can do in Eve. And joined PL, was just a normal line member. I flew the ships that were free, and I died all the time. And eventually I just started doing more and more things. I just decided to fly logistics for a while, and I realized I wasn't good at that. I fly dictors for a while, bubbled my own fleet a bunch of times, got yelled at by Shadu. He once called me the stupidest person he's ever met. Which, but he did that in a way that like only Shadu can do, so it made you feel kind of good, right? So after that, I decided to do more industry and logistics stuff for PL. I got a jump freighter. I started to ship stuff out, and it was pretty interesting. I wasn't very good at it, but I never lost a jump freighter. So I mean, I got that going for me. I very often went without fuel, so I tried to jump and just sit there, and then I'd give up. And yeah, so I ended up getting into the industry side of things and the logistics side of things, and it gave me some pretty cool perspectives. So eventually, what I ended up doing is my corp got kicked from PL because we were notoriously awful. And I went along and we joined a new group, and we hung out in LoSec, and we fished capitals there. We just did small gang stuff, super micro scale, maybe 5, 10 people. Every once in a while we'd get like 15, and since we were in PL, we had a bunch of supers, and back then, supers were kind of rare, not like they are now. So we dropped them on stuff, and it felt really great, and people hated us. Because it was like this 40-man corp just dropping supers, like, how do they have the audacity to do that? So yeah, I learned a lot about the game in that kind of environment, and I kind of got more into leading the corp a little bit. Helping people plan things, helping facilitate other FCs, and facilitating the enablers, the content creators. And I kind of really enjoyed that. And eventually we decided, you know what, PL is really cool, I kind of want to try going back. And our new little corp, we went back to PL. And one of the terms was, I had to be the CEO of it because they didn't trust the other CEO. So that's kind of how I lucked into being a CEO. It was great. And so when my second stint in PL, because I dabbled in so many fields, I decided to pick up FCing. Mostly it just happened because all the good FCs died or didn't feel like playing. And they were like, this needs to be done, so I'm going to go do it. And I was like, fine, I'll go do it. And I was kind of not great at it, but I had great supporting staff. So I started to FC some, and I was like, this is great. And that is probably what I'm most known for, is being an FC for Pandemic Legion. And it literally just got there just by bumbling around like a fool. And after that, I was like, okay, this is the pinnacle of my EF career. I can't get any better than this. I'm just an FC, and I was just like stuck in my FC ways. I was like, I've got a pretty good rounded knowledge of being an FC. I think I got this. Then I decided to run for the CSM. And the first time I ran, I failed horribly. Did not get nearly as many votes as I needed to. And so I was like, I was kind of bummed. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn more about the game, reach out to a wider audience of people. And that's the second time I ran, I ended up winning, thank goodness. And the third time I did as well, CSM 6 and 7, represent, woot, we were great. But yeah, I just kind of decided to try something new with that, and it brought me an incredibly new perspective. I got to meet a whole bunch of new people. I got to hang out with some alliance heads. I got to hang out with a lot of podcasters. This was my first experience of the podcasting community. I knew Eve Radio was a thing, but I didn't really know anything else. I sometimes read Eve News 24, which I kind of regret, but that was my only experience. And then as I was on the CSM, I got a whole lot of new doors open for me. I met podcasters. I met really cool people. And that took me on a new path, where eventually I became a podcaster myself. And yeah, so back to being my FC life. So FC, I was like, this is good. And then I went over to CSM, Obvi. And then I was like, okay, this is it. I can't do any more. I've done everything you can do in Eve. I did wormhole stuff. I did incursions. I did my market stuff. I did some invention for Tech2 BPOs. I did building. I did everything. And just random as it would happen, Shadu decided that he was going to move to Australia and said, oh, I'll be back in 2 months. Everything should be fine, but this guy, if anything happens, this guy could take care of it. And that was almost 3 years ago. The jerk never came back. But yeah, and so even when you think you've hit the peak and you've got everything figured out, there is always something new that you can do, right? And there's always a new curve that will make you love the game a lot. So here I was, one of the leaders of one of the coolest alliances ever, in my opinion, and we brought like 115 people here, so I was like, yeah, this is it. This is everything I'm ever going to need from Eve. I hit the top. And eventually, you know, I was like kind of getting burned out a little bit. And so I took my own advice and I tried to, you know, streaming. And I did really, really poorly at it. It was quite humbling how bad I was. But I then started kind of hanging out with newer players and I started teaching them a little bit. And then Gobbins had this brilliant idea to form a kind of newbie corp or newbie alliance called Horde, and that kind of took off way more than we thought it would. And I started to working with a few of these newer players. These we call them Hordelings or newbies. So I'd kind of take my talents to teaching a little bit. So they didn't care who I was. They didn't know the name Elise Randolph. They didn't know anything about that. All they knew was that someone was teaching them the game, and it just like completely reinvigorated me. So here I was like, I got everything going for me, I got it all, and then I just learned that there's always something new that you can do. And that is really, really important. I know a lot of guys in PL, they had to work a lot, they really enjoyed working with Horde, and it kind of got guys who were on this verge of burning out, it got them back to really enjoying and loving the game. And yeah. Apparently, I've got to wrap it up a little bit, but I would like to make sure that you guys see cowards never win. That's kind of, all you can do is your own personal best, which is kind of the mantra of PL for now a little bit. And it is very true. You guys should always go out there, try something new. Even when you think you've got it all, just go out and try something new. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid of looking like a fool, because everyone is always looking like a fool, especially Eve. Come on. Look around you. We're all kind of foolish looking. So yeah, just go out and do something, because it'll keep you from burning out. It'll keep your friends playing. It'll keep your alliance from crashing. It'll just keep you loving the game, which is really something really important to do. Because Eve is more than just a game. It is a hobby, right? And it is kind of a hobby that a lot of us grew into. So yep. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions or anything, you could always grab me. I'll be like right in the corner. You guys are way too kind.